Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs or at Justin Bizzarro. I have a very special guest back with us, Brian Murphy from Big Apple Bodega here in Denver. We are actually recording in his restaurant. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Tell us where we are. What's the location? It's pretty special considering the first time we recorded was in my basement at the time, right?
Yeah, big difference. We are at 2231 South Broadway. We are on South Broadway in Denver.
Yeah, and talk to me about, you've had a journey. Like when we met and we did the first one, someone had asked me, it's like, oh, I know this guy. You have a podcast. We have him on. He doesn't really believe he's a food entrepreneur yet. Or a restaurateur. Someone told me that that's how the conversation started. So it's interesting because now you're definitely a restaurateur. There's no doubt about it. But you've come a long way. So let's go back to Brian's beginnings in Long Island, New York.
Long Island, born and raised.
Born and raised.
Yep.
And so let's talk about your story, how you ended up becoming an entrepreneur, and especially one in Denver with a New York brand.
Sure. So I grew up in Long Island, went to high school upstate New York. After high school, like every New Yorker, I wanted to go to South Florida. So I went to college down there at the Florida Culinary Institute in West Palm Beach, stayed down there for a little bit and moved back to the city. I moved to Astoria, Queens, where I started my corporate career. I worked for some pretty big names in the corporate world, corporate restaurant world. From New York, I did that for about 10 years. I moved to California for a minute. California was beautiful, just wasn't quite ready for California, so moved to Denver. Transferred with a big corporate name from California to Denver, worked there for a bit, and decided to go off and do my own thing. I was just tired of the corporate rat race. I was tired of proving myself to every new boss that walked through the door. I just wanted to do my own thing. So that's kind of when we met. I was opening my first food truck. So we are a New York themed restaurant, New York themed food truck. We specialize in chopped cheese.
Define chopped cheese for the audience again, just in case they don't know.
Sure. So chopped cheese, we say, is New York City's version of a Philly cheesesteak. It's made with hamburger meat instead of shredded beef. We basically take a burger patty, throw it on the grill with some onions. We season it up, chop it up, and melt cheese all throughout. So it's like a super flavorful, chopped up cheeseburger.
I mean, basically it guarantees flavor in every bite equally, lettuce, tomato, the sauces and the cheese because of the way everything's broken up and the seasoning, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's very, very flavorful.
And bread and all that. Talk to me about how you source your products, and you have a water dog. Let's talk about the menu a little bit and how you came up with it and some of the name of the sandwiches and what that looks like. Let's give visualization to it.
Yeah, sure. So bread was my toughest challenge. I wanted to, in the beginning of the food truck, I shipped in bread from New York City. It was amazing. The shipping cost was super expensive. And by the time it got here, I had very little time to use it. So it wasn't economical. It wasn't going to work out. So I've been trying different local bakeries, finally came up with a really great product that's pretty similar to New York City bread. Obviously not the same thing, but very, very similar. So we got that buttoned up. Yeah, so our menu, so we call our classic the Sinatra. That's if you would walk into any New York City bodega and ask for a chopped cheese, they would give you the Sinatra. So it's the classic New York City chopped cheese.
Continue on. So after the chopped cheese, you had the Sinatra. I've tried some of the other ones. There's like the FDNY.
FDNY. We have the Far Rockaway. We have the Yonkers. So New York City has so many ethnicities and cuisines. So we pulled different flavors out of different neighborhoods and started creating different chopped cheese based on the neighborhoods or some landmarks, some pretty famous landmarks in New York City. We also ship in dirty water dogs, the real thing, the real soubrettes. We ship them in from New York, and we offer that here at the restaurant as well.
And there's some other cool items on your menu, some sides. I'm going to ask you the details of the sandwiches in a second, some of the ones we just talked about, but let's get into the sides and sort of the unique things on your menu and some of your, what I would call the dessert items.
So we have corn dogs, we have pretzel bites. Some of the pretzel bites we roll in salt or we roll in cinnamon sugar for dessert. We now offer cannolis for dessert. We offer Dole Whip. Funny story about Dole Whip. Absolutely love Hawaii. And when I signed the lease to the restaurant, you go back and forth with the lease and make changes, and it's quite a process. Finally signed the lease. I was on vacation in Hawaii. I was having Dole Whip every day. And I turned to my friend and I said, you know what? I'm going to have Dole Whip in my restaurant. So Dole Whip is a non-dairy frozen pineapple soft serve ice cream. It's awesome. Actually, Westward Magazine here in Denver just reached out to me. We are one of 3 places in Denver that offer Dole Whip, so it's pretty unique and it's pretty special. Has nothing to do with New York City. I just love Dole Whip.
I think it is a little bit of a thing that's becoming more popular as an alternative to ice cream and even yogurt and dairy sensitivity and all that. I have seen little Dole Whip cups at Costco, so I am seeing the trend is coming for sure there. Let's go back to the sandwiches. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them in a little bit of detail. Like the name means something, so you've named them after things Far Rockaway, FDNY, as we talked about. But how does that translate to the sandwich, and how are they different? So we talked about the original one. It's a seasoned cheesesteak, but done the traditional way, correct?
Correct.
I mean, cheeseburger done the traditional way, chopped up, as we would say. It's not what's your slogan here?
It's not your average burger joint.
Exactly.
That's what we say. So yeah, it's not your average burger. We chop it up, we season it up super well. So yeah, so I was saying we pulled different flavors out of different neighborhoods. So FDNY is our buffalo style, where you can get it 1 alarm, 2 alarm, or 3 alarm. So different spice levels to the sandwich. We have, you mentioned the Far Rockaway. That's our fajita version. So Far Rockaway is an awesome beach out in Queens. So just related the beach to fajitas.
I had the Notre Dame the other day.
Notre Dame is awesome. It's our version of a Reuben. I actually get the seasoning from a deli in New York City. They ship it to me. We actually just hired a company that's creating all of our seasoning moving forward, which is really, really cool. He created a green chili seasoning for Colorado. So we call it the JFK, JFK to DEN. It's our green chili chopped cheese.
That's awesome. I love this. That's a popular one. I've had that one, like, I think 2 or 3 times. And anyone I've sent here, they end up, Denver green chili. So it's like, it's like bees and honey. Just offer a Denver native green chili and they'll eat it on anything you want.
I can't even finish the sentence green chili and they're saying yes. So, and they love it. So it's awesome.
Yeah. It's true. Denver, people don't know what Denver's known for. It would definitely be green chili, because
absolutely
anyone who's been here more than a few decades and anyone who comes in as a restaurant, eventually you have to put green chili on the menu. And if you don't, you're missing an opportunity to capitalize on local business, literally pioneer business. So it must have been something that kept the pioneers' ribs warm or something, because it's everywhere. I don't know what it is.
It is everywhere.
I'd be interested in looking that up. Let's talk about sides. You have potato skins, you have fries, you have coleslaw. What does that look like?
So we have the pineapple citrus coleslaw. We actually put that on one of our sandwiches, the Long Island. The Long Island is a Jamaican jerk seasoned chopped cheese. It's really, really good. Put the citrus slaw right on top of it. So we also offer the slaw as a side. We make homemade potato salad here probably every other day. And we boil the potatoes, and instead of throwing the skins out, we crisp them up in the fryer. It makes it a really great side, pretty unique for us. Then we kind of can't even keep those around. So we also offer fries for those people who miss out on the skins.
What's your most popular item?
I would say the Sinatra. People aren't super familiar with chopped cheese, and it's a really good place to start. We also have it on lunch special, 11 to 2, Monday through Friday for $12 with fries. So it's a really good deal, especially to get your palate going for chopped cheese.
Yeah, it's definitely an entry point. It's interesting. I think from a human palate standpoint, we are scared of what we haven't had before, but it is pretty traditional. But as I've spent time here with you, it is the most ordered item. People come in and they know it. They order it. Frank Sinatra's out their mouth before the doors close. So those who are loyal, I think, that come in, they do that lunch special.
Absolutely.
And it drives business for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. People either will only have the Sinatra, and every single time they come in, they have the same thing, or they eat through the whole menu and they really try every sandwich and every side. So it's pretty cool the way people think. And
talk to me about the Subway punch card that you guys have.
We have a loyalty card. It's buy 10, get one free. And I created it to look like a New York City Metro card. Yeah, it's just fun. Some people want every single punch when they come in, and I think other people just want the Metro card back in their wallet because New York City isn't really doing Metro cards anymore. So it's very nostalgic for people, and it's nice for them to hold on to and carry around.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk about from food truck to brick and mortar. We haven't talked about this before with you. It's a big step. It's a big leap. You've had some things you've done before, ghost kitchen, some things you've tried in between trying to find your way into a more permanent location. Let's talk about how, it's a big decision to go from a truck to a restaurant. In a lot of people's mind, it's a big wall. It's a big obstacle. Let's walk through what that looks like from a food truck into a permanent location, because you're no longer mobile. You can't go where the business is. You have to deal with the business coming to you, right?
Right. So there are many things I was kind of unaware of. We ran the truck for 2 seasons, 2 very long seasons, meaning we only had a couple of months off in between. Some trucks don't take any time off at all. We decided to. The first year was very successful. I kind of went to any place that offered us just because I wasn't super familiar with the brewery scene or where trucks would typically go here in Denver. So I took everything that came our way. Second season was a little more streamlined. We had a pretty big clientele base. We had a bunch of private catering. From there, last winter when we weren't running the truck, I really wanted to get into a brick and mortar. Just some things you don't know. They say location, location, location is very, very true. You really need to pick a great spot, but it's not easy. There's not much out there, and what is out there, the different terms of the different leases and everything else. It might be the greatest location, but it might just be out of your range. So really take your time, really check the neighborhoods out, because just like you said, Justin, people are coming to us now. We're not going to them. So it is a different ball game, and you really have to make sure that you cater to your clientele. It's crazy because I basically just threw the same menu up that we had on the food truck, and customers would come in and say, "Oh, do you have a kids menu?" No, why would I have a kids menu? And I'm a restaurant now. I need a kids menu. It's things you don't think of because on the food truck, you only have so much refrigeration and so much room. When kids came to the truck, the parents made it work, and we made it work as well, but there wasn't such a need for an entire menu. So there's different things you learn along the way that, that's not going to work for a brick and mortar. We have to change and adjust and adapt. So it's challenging in a good way.
Thought process. Like this is really, I want to anchor this because I think knowing that you're calculated as an entrepreneur, you're conservative in your strategy, but you execute well.
Yeah, it's a process, and you think you crossed all your T's and dot your I's and you're ready to open the door, and here we are, and come to us, and people don't know what chopped cheese is, and you're throwing stuff on Instagram, and your family's really liking it and commenting, but is the rest of Denver, so I actually just recently hired a PR company, which they have been absolutely amazing. They've done tremendous work for me and tremendous help, but they're not cheap, and it's definitely money well worth spent.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of PR companies in the restaurant world and the food world. I have honestly, the the moving of the marker that they've done for you from a professional standpoint and a commitment standpoint and a money turned into eyes on you standpoint, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, they're amazing.
It's been maybe 3 companies I've seen that have done it and executed as well as they have with the connections and gotten the right influencers in here and the radio and the TV. And, you know, everyone should go back and listen to Brian and I's first podcast. I think I was a train wreck trying to get the podcast off the ground again. And Brian was nervous to be on the show.
It. I was shaking in my boots.
Yeah. And still not sure he was an entrepreneur yet. So,
yeah.
Let's talk about designing the store from a layout standpoint, from an ambiance standpoint, from an outside standpoint. You have graffiti, you have stuff inside. Let's lay it out visually because we can't see it, the audience. And but you've also designed it. So let's sort of go through the thought process also and why it looks the way that it does and what it looks like.
Sure. So the previous restaurant before me was basically counter service, kind of similar to a Chipotle concept where you go down the line, pick what you want and head out the door. There were no seats. There were 2 bar stools in the whole restaurant. And it's only about 1,200 square foot place. I think the dining room is probably about half of that, maybe 600 square feet. So there's a nice patio. They had about 6 seats outside. So, you know, this is in South Florida where you can be outside year round. So I decided to put about 6 tables inside. We made a little bar top where there's 4 bar stools. It is counter service, but you don't go down the line. You order right at the register there, and we run all food to you. And then the patio as well. I really want to maximize the space. So we put a lot of greenery out there, kind of, you know, you're right on South Broadway and it gets a little loud. So we kind of want to make it feel a little bit of private. And there's about 18 seats out there, just really maximize the space. Then as you walk in, there's tons of pictures, tons of New York City themed items on the wall. We took a bunch of pictures from the food truck and hung them around, all of our food pictures, some just nostalgic New York City items, just really to give that New York City themed feel.
Yeah, let's talk about the pigeon. Let's talk about your mascot. Let's talk about how this got in here. How did this all start? Like, why New York City is known for waving cats, I would say, but
right. So we'll go back to the name, Big Apple Bodega. So obviously Big Apple is New York City. Bodega. I say bodega because the chopped cheese is on bodega menu. So in the beginning, people would come in and they say, oh, this is a bodega. There's no cat. I said, well, it's not quite a bodega, and that's why there's no cat. And then as time went on, there's 4 or 5 people that said it in the first couple of weeks. And I said, you know what? We need a mascot. So we have Dawn. Dawn is our pigeon. New York City's filled with pigeons. We have a bunch of little pigeons around and a little stuffed pigeon on the counter. So when people ask me about the cat, I direct them to Dawn and say that we have a pigeon now.
How did Dawn get her name?
So I asked my team, I said, what should we name the pigeon? Now we have a mascot. We have to bring this to life. And the general manager, Mandy, starts dying laughing. I said, what? And she says, Dawn. And I said, why Dawn? She said, you can't say that word. So you say that word with such an accent. So that's her name. I said, okay, done.
It is fitting for New York. And sometimes our accent leaves us. Mine for sure comes and goes, but mine's all over the board. So, but I like the name. I like the mascot, the cats, and anyone who knows, even the clocks that are the waving cat with the waving arm. The reason it moves is because if it moves, a mouse sees it moving and it runs away out the door. That's why it's at the front door, so they don't come in with the guests. That's why there's those things there and why cats are there in the first place. So I love that there's an association there, but being in food service and the food business, it's kind of funny how something that's keeping out the critters becomes that representation. It's doing its job, though, I guess. If you want to eat there, you know there's a cat there doing its job. So
we have Dawn looking over for us.
Yeah,
now.
Dawn, and there's definitely health inspectors in Denver that are pretty strict. So
right.
Let's talk about the future. But first, I want to anchor it on what was it like to open here? You open your first brick and mortar. You have staff to train now. You probably expended the number of staff because you're doing more volume. You can serve now 24/7 versus having to prep and then serve and drive all over the place. And we'll get into a little bit of how food trucks teach you to pick good locations and what that trial and error process looks like at the beginning and how it helps with expansion or picking a location. So I'm going to anchor all of those things, but let's go back to first opening the store. A lot of people move in with the food truck. You had already trained them in there. That's one question. And then the second one is opening, getting ready, doing an opening. What was all that like?
Yeah, so I was pretty blessed in a lot of my corporate jobs to open new stores. I helped some markets open in New York City. I traveled a bit and opened new stores with other companies. So I kind of got the gist of opening a store and what it would be like. You know, hiring is the biggest obstacle, I would say, with opening a new store. You have to make sure that you pick the right team. You have to make sure you really vet the people and that they'll be a good fit. It's really hard to do when you interview somebody even if you talk to them for 30, 40 minutes to make the right choice. So yeah, the biggest obstacle I think would be hiring. Most of my team came from the truck to the brick and mortar. I actually hired two of the girls at one of my corporate locations, and they left that job about a year into the truck. And they came to the truck and worked, and now they're at the brick and mortar with me. So yeah, I mean, it's a process. We opened May 30th. Took the lease over May 1st. So I took about 29 days to get the building up and going, to interview, to train, to hire. We had a friends and family weekend. So all the new staff would invite a couple of friends, a couple of family members. It was free for everyone. And it was more to train the team and get them practicing with the different menu items. So
let's talk about this a little bit. I'm going to extrapolate and then expand. The experience in opening corporate stores, obviously it was a chain. So you're opening multiple stores, you're picking locations, a lot of people go into restaurants and businesses thinking when they open the doors, all of a sudden the business is going to go. But an opening's really not like that. We just discussed all the things that it takes to do an opening. So strategically in your mind, when you opened, it's not the same thing as most people. It's not like all of a sudden the floodgates open. It's like a trickle. But explain to me how that experience helped you remain calm during the beginning. It was a steady increase, I would say, for you, but a lot of people can't handle what those little ups and downs look like at the very beginning.
So that's something that people don't prepare you for. That's something maybe I didn't ask the right questions before I opened the brick and mortar, but working for these really big name companies, when you open a store, it's go time. And it's like, they have the name, they have the corporate money to back them. They have trainers from all around the country to come and help you open the store. And then it is go time. For me, we were busy in the beginning. It's the hype of a new restaurant. We were fortunate enough to open in warm weather. So we definitely had a good solid month to 6-7 weeks where we're pumping along. And then, fall comes and school starts super early here in Denver. So families change their routines, kids change their routines. So now the business changes. Well, I guess what I didn't ask is to other entrepreneurs, to other restaurant owners, I guess, how the flow would be. With my corporate experience, it's go time. With now my entrepreneur experience and having a brick and mortar, no 2 days are the same. Thursdays used to be our busiest lunch, and now it's Tuesdays. Sometimes Tuesdays hit and miss. I was talking to you, Justin, earlier today that Saturday was off the charts here. Couldn't even answer a phone if I had to. But last Saturday was just a slow trickle and similar sales volume throughout the whole day, but just comes in differently. So yeah, I just wasn't prepared for the ups and downs. It is very stressful. It's very stressful. It's a mind game. It's to wrap your mind around how's the week going to turn out? How's the day going to turn out? Now I have a full-time team that I'm responsible for and need to pay and need to make sure that they get hours. So it's definitely a different kind of stress, I would say.
Yeah, I'm going to get into it. I think what we talked about and the trajectory of a business at the beginning is so much about just remaining in the saddle. Obviously not being stupid. I think there's two things that happen. One, people hit the brakes and they panic and they stop doing business normally and they stop functioning, and because they're almost in a shell shock. I've seen that. And the other one is they start pushing things to an extreme. They start spending too much money, thinking that the business they need to hunt down the business, so that they're hunting really rapidly and they're spending a lot of money up front. But it is a tortoise and a hare game in food, and you have to have, one of the things Brian has done well is he's had longevity in business so far with the food truck. He's also learned some hard knocks. We'll talk a little bit about those. And we'll also talk a little bit about selling the food truck and why you did that.
Yes.
So let's go to the food truck first. So now you're like in a brick and mortar and you sell the food truck, which is your main core business. We'll talk to what's going on there. How's all that going?
So like I mentioned in the beginning, when you sign a lease or you're interested in a property, you go back and forth a whole bunch of times and goes to attorneys, and it's a whole process. So that happened last winter. During the winters when you book the truck for the summer. So I was at a crossroads here. Am I going to really book this truck and take it out in the summer? Or am I going to really focus on hopefully this lease I'm signing and this restaurant that I'm opening? I wanted to do one thing really well and not do two things half-assed. I didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver by running the truck and opening the restaurant. So I decided to pump the brakes on the truck and leave it there in storage. And we signed the lease, obviously, and got the restaurant up and going. So now the truck is sitting there and my team is doing well. We kind of found our rhythm. What we haven't really talked about is financing and how you get into a space like this and the cost of it all. But, as maybe did some things foolishly, you learn, you spend money where you shouldn't. However, I had these giant credit card bills, businesses making money, but the truck is just sitting there. So I decided to sell the truck. I actually tried 3 times. The first 2 times I didn't try super hard, didn't want to sell it. It's the beginning of my company. But on the third time I said, what am I doing? This pretty expensive truck is just sitting in storage, which I'm paying for the storage, paying these super high interest. I think I was only paying interest payments. I said, I got to do something here. So I put the truck online. It actually sold in 2 days. I was able to pay off almost all of my credit cards. So now I'm not paying interest and I'm able to spend my money wisely.
Let's talk about you sold a truck. Let's revert back to just the food truck business in general in Denver. That's where you have the experience right now. I know before you ever owned your own food truck, you went out and worked for other people in food trucks. Let's talk about that and why I want to anchor this in your character and in your personality, because I think it's important, the humility. But why go work for someone else for so long? Why not just take your money and open a food truck right away? Why take the dip in pay and the loss of revenue and go through that for multiple years potentially?
Yeah, I left my bougie job where I was corporate money, corporate health insurance, 3 weeks paid vacation. I was the boss, highly respected, and I was tired of it. I wanted to do my own business, but I wanted to make sure that what I was getting into was what I wanted to do. So I left my job and I actually worked for Kona Ice. It was one of the best jobs I ever had in my life. It was the summer of 21, I believe. And it was just amazing. The woman I worked for was amazing. She had 4 trucks and creating a little empire herself and entrepreneur, and just had a blast. And I said, Kona Ice isn't necessarily 100% a food truck, the dessert truck, but very, very similar. And I said, I think I can see myself doing this. I think I want to invest in myself and move forward with the food truck business.
Let's talk about that, the decision to invest in oneself, because I think most humans don't even know what that is, that aren't entrepreneurs. They invest in other people. Their money sits in 401k. You're investing in the market. Everything's through other humans. We rarely actually bet on me.
Yeah, you have to have a great support system. And on top of the support system, you really have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in what you're doing. One reason why I named my company Big Apple Bodega and not something to do with chopped cheese is that I wanted to make sure my concept, the chopped cheese concept, was going to be successful. And if the chopped cheese, if people weren't picking up what I was putting down, I can still call it Big Apple Bodega and change the menu a bit and maybe have one chopped cheese and not, now we have 19. Actually, we probably have about 22. I created a couple this weekend. So I wanted to, just going back to what you said, you just really have to believe in yourself and believe in the concept.
I love it. So talk to me about what the food truck business taught you about location and finding good locations, because it mattered when you chose this location. I think it's going to matter as you expand corporately as well as through franchises. I don't want to get into that part yet, but I do want to talk about the discernment that you now have because of the food truck business in terms of what I think is an essential piece of your entrepreneurial upbringing. I will say your adolescence was those years for this one of many reasons, but this one specifically is important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the first year we almost won every single place we were invited to go, and you learn a lot. And some people, it was almost like we were bringing a new cuisine to Denver. That chopped cheese, you sell cheese boards? I said, no, I didn't spend all this money on a truck and all this time to sell cheese boards. Nothing against that. It just wasn't my thing. So just really, explaining to people who we are and what we do and giving out samples. And so location is very important, but it turned more into the second year of bringing our customers to where we are almost. So people would really follow us on Instagram and really see where we're going and almost like follow us down, chase us down to come and get us while still building up the business and still introducing ourselves to people who haven't had us yet. So
I love it. Let's talk about as you're building your business again. You're making a few strategic steps, right? You've acquired something, and you're also been working your way through the trial and errors of basically creating 3 different business models under the same roof. We're going to talk about that. Well, maybe even 4 if we include catering. But let's just sort of talk about the future, what you have going on, and then I'm going to break it into pieces and we're going to talk about it.
Sure. So this first year of the restaurant, this is, I guess, our 8th month we're going on. People kept asking us all summer, do you have the truck? Are you bringing the truck out? And although for some of the time it was sitting in storage, like I said, I just wanted to do one thing right, not 2 things halfway. So going through the fall, we decided to bring out a flat top barbecue, get a canopy, a couple of tables, and do little pop-up events throughout Denver and the surrounding areas. People really loved us. People were glad that we were kind of back, although we didn't have a truck, that our food was coming to different festivals and different events. And then one of our last events, Mandy and I were sitting there, and she said, I really do miss the truck. And I said, I think a lot of Denver misses the truck. A lot of people are asking us about it. So we decided to build a food trailer. My buddy built a trailer for us. So it's very similar to the truck, obviously just without the engine. And we're about to get finished with our licensing, and we're going to take it out probably the first week of February. So we'll be back out and about with a food trailer this time and not a food truck.
Yeah. And this is very important because Brian's also going into franchising. Let's talk about that thought process. Why? Let's talk about how you got here. In that thought process, there's trial and error there too. You're learning, and I'm anchoring all of this. We're going to come full circle on this, but let's talk about franchising, the decision to do it, lessons learned as you sort of walk through this process.
So franchising. So the very first year with the truck, someone approached me about franchising a company that can get my company able to sell franchises. It was definitely a really big process and costly process. And I wanted to be the first chopped cheese franchise ever in the country. And I was really pushing that, and people loved us. And this company was, feeding me what I wanted to hear. And I said, okay, let's do it. And right as soon as I signed, and now we're legal to sell franchises, this company turns to me and says, oh, but by the way, we don't have leads for you. We don't we can do the closing paperwork, but basically got my money, got it all, got my company legalized, and then just sent me on my way. So it wasn't quite the picture that they painted for me. And it's the middle of my first summer with the truck. So I said, I had to pump the brakes here and put franchising on the back burner and really focus on this truck. Although I am the first chopped cheese franchise, now I have to go about marketing it and selling it and getting franchisees on board. So it's a whole full-time job in itself.
Yeah. And talk to me about corporate locations. You're obviously doing the food trailer. Do you see yourself owning more stores, you as a corporation, in addition to the franchises? Is that something that you see? Like, maybe I hear a lot of franchisees say, I want at least 10 for myself and the franchisees. Is there numbers in your head, goals for you that sort of you've thought about?
I'm not sure about that. Now, just to let everyone know, we're getting the franchise back up and going. I think I'm working with the right people to start selling and to really focus on that as well. We're going to get the truck out, like I said, the beginning of February, focus on the truck and the restaurant. I would love to maybe keep it that for corporate, keep one location and one food truck, the trailer, as the corporate, and then grow the franchise.
I think it's important that I'm going to talk about this right here, because we basically, what Brian's talking about is he's went from one business model, which was a food truck. He then got into the restaurant. Then he got rid of the food truck, got back into pop-ups, realized in order to meet the market and the demand, he needs to get back into food trucks, not just pop-ups. Okay. So now he's running a restaurant, he's running a food trailer, and he's running a franchise business. All those models are all different. Okay. Once a business decides to go franchise, you're no longer a food systems business only. You're also selling a food system. So you're both a sales and marketing company for yourself, even with outside help. And you have to learn a whole new business, which is the franchise business. And if you're alone and you think that there's help out there, a lot of the time it's true in a lot of ways. There's the ability to get you to franchise, but the ability to have a franchisee becomes a whole different game. And that's where you have to gain skills as a franchisor as you go through this process of properly filtering through franchisees. We talk about in the chicken and waffle episode before this, part 4, about if you rush into franchises, you can end up with bad franchisees and it can cause damage to your brand. And then you end up having to take back the franchises or those going under and rebuilding your model and fixing your brand. So there's a couple things to look at. I think a lot of people are like, let's franchise and grow as quick as possible, and Crumble's become the new model, and 1,000 stores in less than a year. The reality is anything that grows that fast grows on weak structure or weak customers. And what do I mean by weak customers? A customer, oh, I eat Crumble all the time. What do you mean I'm a weak customer? No, what I mean is a majority of Crumble's customers were only there for the fad. That's not building a loyal customer. That's what's called a weak customer. It's a weak connection. It's based off of something that's a feeling, not based on something that's a relationship. And there's a difference. And I want everyone to realize we have the feeling that we have when we're just transactional versus when we're in a relationship are two different things. And your businesses should be the same way. Brian does a good job of connecting with everyone here. Everyone that comes in the door, he's the face on TV right now. He's working on his business. He did a good transition from in to open the store, training the team, finding a good manager. He has Mandy, who we talked about, who's now going to run the food trailers because she's a very strong lead. He's got very strong employees here for a market that is in the toilet, for lack of a better term, in terms of quality food service workers. Sorry, Denver. We need to step up our game here. You know, we need to start fighting the fight here. But talk to me about that a little bit, and then I'm going to get into the whole entrepreneurial tool belt that you're wearing right now. But let's talk about hiring, firing, keeping the business honest. There's a lot of things that go on as a business owner and temptations that just circle around the business. So let's talk about employees, all the way to moral character, all the way to core values, all that type of stuff, because it is part of your business. It is part of what you're selling with a franchise. It is also, interestingly, what your customers are picking up on and why they keep coming back. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I feel as if I need to be the face of the company, the face of the business. I'm on the register every single day. I do my fair share of cooking, but I just really need to make sure customers know what we do here. They're not walking into a chicken place where there's, chicken fingers on the menu, or even like a regular burger joint where you pick a type of burger that you want. We are some type of specialty, it seems. So I really need to let the customers know who we are, what we stand for. And when you get that camaraderie with fellow New Yorkers and people who are from the East Coast, just connecting with them and where are you from? And, oh, I've been there. And, oh, that's where I went to high school. And it's amazing once you start chatting with people and, oh, my grandparents lived there, and just how welcome they feel and how connected they feel, and, that they'll definitely be back, and getting into hiring and training. And my team is like that as well. They're not from the East Coast, but they love it. They've either visited or they love what we're doing here. They're very passionate about what we're doing here. There's, as of 2 weeks ago, there was 5 of us. Now there's 8 of us because we're getting ready to open the truck, but we're small. You hire extra in the beginning because things happen. And yeah, we've got our core group of employees that have our back 100%. Everyone's cross-trained, so they're not getting bored on the grill. They're not getting bored on the register. We all do the same job here. So training is very important, and them hearing me speak with the customers and how I want it to be said, and just the camaraderie that's here it's just amazing.
Let's fun amongst all the stress, unloading. You're managing 3 businesses now. You do know that, right? Just so we talk about your tool belt, and you went from not thinking you were an entrepreneur to now running 3 different business models inside your business, which will all end up 3 different business LLCs potentially. And then there's the 4th one, which I didn't even get into, which is a catering model, which I see in your future, which is a combination of sort of maybe the restaurant and the truck, but there's this interest that's coming there. We see this trend that's coming back again in terms of catering that I think is going to benefit you. But unloading, not working 24/7, not being obsessed to the point of killing yourself emotionally from the stress. Talk to me about how you balance that out, how you've been able to handle the growth, because that's adding stress. It's not taking it away, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a balance. It's something that, you think you have one day and then you struggle with the next day. It's, just follow up. When emails roll in, I try to answer them immediately, take it off my plate and not make a giant to-do list. And then also, this might sound good, might sound bad, but not saying to not say yes to everything. You have to pick and choose. It's just to try to have a balance. I'm not a doctor. This isn't an emergency room, but you want to answer every phone call. You want to get back to every single person, but just trying to make the right decisions for the business. And, every day is different. So it's, it definitely gets challenging, but just staying present, following up, definitely communicating, really big on communicating.
Yeah, I love it. So talk to me about, you have something on your wall over there. It's your core values. It's on your fridge. It's on your whiteboard. Let's talk about those and specifically what each one is and what they represent and how you came up with it, because it's an important part of what you're also selling in your franchise and stuff like that.
Right. So we call it the Bodega board. So Bodega, the BODEGA, all stands for something different. And we try to fill it out every week and we try to change it up. So just the B is being outstanding, things like that. So we give an example of how we would love our team to be outstanding or how they were outstanding last week, and really try to spread positivity and communicate with our team members to let them know different items that are coming up and some different things that customers have come across. Just really communicate across the board.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's good for your staff to have goals or have core values built in your business. It's something we've talked about. I've obviously, like the board, I think building those core values in your business from day one are pretty important, or having some sort of thing to anchor the employees to.
And Justin, that goes back to my corporate life. When I was setting this restaurant up in my head on a notebook, just writing down different menu items and creating the company, when I was done with that draft anyway, I looked at it and I said, wow, my corporate brain really, everything is easily taught. Everything is step by step. It's really very easy to replicate. So it's all my years of training in corporate.
Talk to me about, you mentioned you developed 2 new chopped cheeses over the weekend.
I love it.
Talk to me about creativity. Talk to me about how you come up with it, the simplicity of diversifying the menu, how you sort of broke everything down into components and made everything easier. Let's talk about it from an operational, functional standpoint. But let's go creativity. I create it. Now I have to turn it into something we can make many of. So there's a lot there. So
yeah. So I think how I create menu items, how I create different chopped cheese is based on the seasoning that I can get. So like I said, we are connected with Spice Company now, and I was looking through what they offer, and I would see different seasonings. So one is a rosemary Dijon seasoning. And I said, oh, what can I do with this? So I got a sample of it and I put it on a burger and made it into a chopped cheese. And I said, oh, this would taste good with, X, Y, and Z. So it gets really creative for me, probably from my culinary background and my education with college, to see the different seasonings and really let my brain run with it. We started the truck with, I believe, 12 chopped cheese, and I think we're up to 22. We have 9 on the menu, our core 9, and then we rotate one out anywhere from week to 2 weeks, depending. So we always have 10 running on the menu. And the winter's a good time to get super creative. Sales are a little bit slower in the winter. Summer, especially with the trailer, we'll be super busy planning. So probably won't be rolling out any new chopped cheese then, but that's why we do it now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And talk to me about, then you obviously you have the spice, you then have to do the training, you SOPs, like how do you talk to me about all the processes and your manuals and stuff like that?
Sure. So here at Big Apple Bodega, on the grill, every chopped cheese is seasoned differently. The grill is the hardest part to work in the restaurant or on the truck. And then when you swing the chopped cheese over to the dress station, it's almost all the same. So at a typical restaurant, the grill is probably all the same. It's all a burger with a different kind of cheese, a couple of shakes of salt and pepper, and then you swing it over to the dress station, and then there's your different toppings and your different flavors and your different sauces. Well, for us, it's a little bit different. So the grill is all different. You swing it over, every sandwich gets lettuce and tomato and a different kind of sauce. So training is fairly simple. Every chopped cheese gets the same amount of seasoning. They all get onions. And then, we'll update our operating procedures. We have cheat sheets in the back. We have 5 shakes of this, 2 slices of that. So it's all broken down very, very simple for the team.
So I have 2 questions for you, because I think setting ideals is a good thing, or standards, or what we're looking for is a good thing to put into the future. If you were a franchisee and you were coming here to open a Big Apple Bodega, what would be your process of doing that? What would be, because you know your business, you know what it's like to open trailers and trucks and restaurants now. I'm a franchisee. Obviously, you want me to be qualified and have operations experience and know food somewhat in my background, and have a good operator of my business, and the operator be willing to go through proper training with you. All of those things, because I know you are working on your Big Apple Bodega University, for lack of a better term. I don't know what it'll be called, but will have a training program, and do have a training program already that will be sort of used as the example for franchisees. But let's skip to the part of, you're the person, I'm willing to do all of that and be a good franchisee. What do I do? What's the proper steps for you, not what the world says?
You'd have to come here at least 2 to 4 weeks, really observe, really learn, really, I'd say in the beginning is observe and see the business, but really dive into every aspect of the company. Start out as a team member and start out on cash and get certified on cash, get certified on grill, get certified on all the different stations, and then work your way up to shift manager, to assistant general manager, and to general manager. So really touching on all aspects of the company. I would expect you to jump on the truck, learn how to go and get propane and start the generator and, everything from starting the truck and hitching it up to selling out. There's some amazing festivals we hope to go to this summer where, whatever we can bring, we'll sell. So there's some super, super busy festivals. Yeah. So just learning from A to Z, 100% of the entire business.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, very much. I appreciate your time. That was awesome. I loved all the information and the detail. Where can they find you online? How can they get a hold of you? Let's talk about all that. How can they get the trailer for events? Let's lay out the dirty.
So yeah, so we'll post our events on Instagram. So follow us. It's at Big Apple Bodega. Our website is bigappledodega.co. And then, we're on South Broadway. We're basically the corner of Evans and Broadway, 2231 South Broadway, is our brick and mortar. So phone numbers on the website. Yeah, but it's swing on by, come check us out.
Awesome. Thank you. I have one question as we sort of wrap things up here. I think these are, I gave Brian a list of questions that he was really hoping we'd get through, and I didn't ask one from there. So I'm just going to ask him one so we did it. Mentors, influences, leaders that you've looked up to, people that have helped you, guide you, because there's a couple things. You don't get to where you are, even though it seems hard for you. I'm going to say this. It's a lot harder for others that don't have a support system or maybe a mentor system or the ability or the rebellion in themselves to fall and get back up. There's a rebellious nature there. It's not necessarily disobedience, but it's necessarily that I don't have to stay down because society tells me to give up. There's an influence there, an impact there, a drive, because whether you think it or not, I know it because I see entrepreneurs all the time. A lot of people don't get back up over and over again. Let's talk about influences.
Yeah. In my corporate life, I've had great role models. I've had great bosses. I've had great influences, people who pushed me, people who made me, strive for more. And that's the corporate aspect of it all. I would think the least, I guess I wasn't expecting to have the role model that I did is when I went to Kona Ice. Her name is Adri. She's since moved on from Kona Ice. She sold it, but she had 4 trucks. She was a single mom. She killed the game of life. She was from the corporate world as well, not even corporate restaurants. And she was an amazing role model. Truly someone that I looked up to, believed in everything that she said and helped me more than she'll ever know. So entrepreneur wise, it's definitely Kona Ice and Adri. It was amazing.
I'm going to just anchor this just for the audience, because anyone who's not an entrepreneur or didn't start off an entrepreneur, or maybe even someone that had a lot of success at the beginning, it didn't go through this, it'll come. There is a reckoning for sure. But the humility to go learn a skill and gain an education, by the way, you're getting paid for it. It may not be a lot, by the way, but someone is paying you for this education. Now, does everyone think that way? No. Most humans in the labor force don't think someone's paying you for an education. But if you really think about it, when you start at the bottom, that's what it is if you want to rise.
Yeah.
Okay. It's cheaper because there's a different equation for you if you think about it that way. Okay. That's what I want to emphasize. And the other side of it is any money Brian would have made staying in his corporate life or whatever, great. Maybe it's a different way of life, but he wouldn't have the education. He wouldn't have the character. He wouldn't have the change of the human that we see here as a result of what happened at Kona Ice.
Kona Ice, the least expecting job, the serving frozen ice to kiddos. leaving, like I said, my bougie job, working for a lot less, like you said, and just meeting the most fantastic people. And yeah, like I said, Adri, she's just amazing. So super blessed.
Yeah, I want to talk about this a little bit more as we end the episode, and anyone who's out there who's thinking about being an entrepreneur or a food business. I don't know. There is a common theme here. Okay. There is a lot of common themes. Some of it is people wanting to be entrepreneurs and freedom and all that. Okay. That's one of the themes, but the real theme, regardless of background, regardless of economic level, regardless of ethnic background, this podcast goes all over the world, or we interview all people that have different American dreams from all different parts of the world. The commonality is the willingness to go to rock bottom for a dream. And that doesn't mean I thrust myself to rock bottom. There's a difference, because falling to rock bottom is much different than willing to go there to learn a skill and humbles oneself to gain a better future. And suffering and salvation, we talk a lot about it, but it's true in the humility process. It may be suffering, and it may hurt, and it may hurt financially, and it may hurt in every way possible. And it does. Like, there's times where you're in that spot and you're like, don't you know what I've done? You're going to treat me like this. I'm not just some person behind the counter in a food truck, or behind the counter at a donut shop, or whatever that it is. And I've been there, because when life happens or your dreams happen and you're an entrepreneur and you want to keep pursuing that dream, you have to start all over again sometimes. And that's what's happened to me over the last 3 years. It's been a life reset, and I've had to go to the bottom in a lot of cases and relearn things, and learn things about the food business and the delivery business, and things about the hospitality business by doing jobs that I don't necessarily want to do. The old me, but the new me is like, yes, I have to do these things. I have to seek humility. I have to seek experience. I have to learn from some of the best people in the business. Well, in the food business, the best people are the people on the front lines. Honestly, the operations, it took me a long time to realize that, how important that is, but it's true. Your front line in the food business is your most important line, and they should be paid for it. Whoever's that front line in your operations, again, I'm going to repeat it. If they're doing a good job, they're able to handle your customers the way that they should. Those are the people you want to keep. It's always amazing to me, being who I am and then going and humbling myself, and see all these individuals that should be the supervisors and should be the managers, but they're overlooked because in the corporate world, there's a lot of favoritism sometimes. But on the other hand, in another environment I've seen, there's these great corporate leaders that have picked the right people, and it looks like everyone they pick is right, but the reality is they just know how to grow everyone. And those have been some cool things I've experienced over the last 2 years as well. So a lot of cool things, a lot of entrepreneurs who have been on this show, a lot of entrepreneurs in the world that have invested in me or been on the show the last year. It matters. The last 2 years, 3 years, whatever it's been, all of it matters. So if you're an entrepreneur or wanna be entrepreneur, just go seek out an entrepreneur at any level, someone who's entrepreneur, not just running a shop that's not going to grow. There's a difference between a sole proprietor and an entrepreneur, and we got to be careful.
It's so true what you say. If I was too prideful, or if I was, in my way, I wouldn't be here today. I took a step back, even 2 steps back, to take 10 steps forward. So it's crazy. Just get out of your own way and learn and humble yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much
for the show. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get you back on. Everyone in the audience, I love you guys. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate everyone. We've relaunched now. I think I've recorded 31 episodes or something so far. We have another 54 in the queue for everyone. We are trying to get them all done. No dropping off this year. The commitment is to do an episode every other day for the whole year, and then try to continue that on. But we have to front load the recordings, interestingly, to prepare for all the marketing and advertising that follows. And I've been through this process before and had life blow up. So I'm looking forward to life being a little more stable and actually being able to complete this. So I appreciate all you guys, the encouragement, all the entrepreneurs that keep pushing me to keep doing it and wanting to be on the show. Brian is one of them. He is someone who continues to show up in my life and pull me along through some of the stuff and being like, let's do this. I know we can do it. So I appreciate all of you guys out there. Gene at Walter's Hot Dogs. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to you. You've always been encouraging about the podcast and life and pushing on and what it's like to be in a family business and have those dynamics. So I appreciate that as well. And then there's a lot of other guys out there and that support what we're doing here. So I thank you guys. How can you guys support it in the audience? Come to Brian's restaurant, come to Big Apple Bodega, try a Frank Sinatra if you want to just get your feet wet. If not, I recommend that you try the whole menu. I'm getting my way through it. It's a commitment. You can see it on my social media. I am trying to do that as well because I do like it. Also, you can share, subscribe to the podcast or the episode itself. And that's it. So thank you guys, and we're out.